Well, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mark Carouse. We're here in Tampa, Florida during the annual AMSEC conference, and we're going to interview Skip Russell. We're delighted you're here, Skip.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
As you may know, there's a history task force, and the board of directors thought it was important to capture some of the thoughts and reflections and experiences of some of our more senior members. And that's not a dig or any derogatory comment at all, because I know you're still practicing. But we've got a series of questions that we've used before, and I'd like to go through these sort of one by one. It's a rough script. If there's any area that you'd like to digress on, certainly feel free to. So the first question is what were the circumstances that led you to become a perfusionist? And if you could supply some of the dates and people that you interfaced with when you first got into perfusion, Skip.
Well, my father was a physician, and he passed away when I was 10 years old from heart disease. So I knew I wanted to do something in medicine, but I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I thought about going to medical school. But after I dropped out of college during the Vietnam era, I decided that if I wasn't going to be in school, I was going to be drafted. So I went back to school, and I went into respiratory therapy. In those days, it was called inhalation therapy.
Yes.
And I became a respiratory therapist, and I had been working for a couple of years in our department. And they came to me, the director of the program came and asked if I wanted to train on the job to be a perfusionist. I asked if I would make more money, and they said yes, so I said, okay, I'll do it.
And what hospital setting was this, Skip?
That was at Bethany Medical Center in Kansas City, Kansas.
Bethany Medical Center.
In 1977, I started my training in January, and it took about 3 months, and the person who was training me decided to take a job at another hospital. So I was left by myself.
So this was a on-the-job training situation. It wasn't a formal program.
Correct.
It was one-on-one with your
Yes.
with the more senior perfusionist who I assume had been working for some years.
Yes.
And how big was the open heart program at Bethany in those years?
We were doing 120 cases a year.
Okay.
And I stayed for 2 years as the chief and only perfusionist that they had. I was on call 24/7. I was only paid to be on call on the weekends. I did not receive any money for being on call Monday through Friday.
Is that right?
And but I didn't get called in that often either. Our hospital was located between two major freeways in a bad section of town.
Okay.
So our emergencies were either gunshot wounds or stabbings or car accidents. The rest of our cases were elective.
So it was a private practice situation? Mm-hmm. How many surgeons were there that you worked for?
We had 3 surgeons, Dr. Thomas, Frank Bickelmeyer, and Mike Bogan. And Dr. Bickelmeyer was the chief, and he had trained at the Cleveland Clinic. So after my mentor left, the hospital sent me to the Cleveland Clinic for 2 weeks.
I see.
And I spent 2 weeks with John Mazurko and Dave Orgalla and Tula and Marty Sinkowitz. They were doing 14 open heart surgeries a day. They were still using the old Travenol bag, bubbler. Yes. And they had been given several cases of bubble oxygenators that they didn't want to run. So I got to run those. And the old William Harvey H1000 oxygenator.
Sure, sure.
So I stayed for 2 weeks and stayed all day at the hospital every day. And the hospital picked up the tab for me to be there. So that was additional training that I got.
And would you consider that 2 weeks important in elevating your skill levels when you went back to Bethany?
Yes.
Well, I guess seeing 14 cases a day is pretty intense.
Well, and they would come in, the attending would come in and sew the distal anastomosis, and then they'd leave the room and go on to another case. And the residents would do the proximals and take you off bypass.
Sure. Now, when you went back to Bethany, can you tell us a little bit about some of the equipment you used? What was your choice of oxygenators, et cetera?
I had an Optiflow 1 oxygenator that had an arterial side heat exchanger.
Yes.
I had a Travenol pump, and I had an old Avco balloon pump, the first model 7.
Yes.
And we put quite a few people on the balloon pump because we didn't have cardioplegia in those days.
Right.
And,
right.
So we didn't have very good myocardial protection.
Sure. Was any cell savers used?
I had the first cell saver in Kansas City.
Which was the Hemonetics?
The Hemonetics 1, Model 1.
Sure.
I talked to the Hemonetics rep the other day, and he said that's on display at their home office.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we had to leave at least 1,000 cc's of blood in the oxygenator at the end of the case so I could spin that down and give it back.
Yes, yes.
So when we got a level of 1,000, then we didn't transfuse anymore after that.
Okay. Now, I recall the Optiflow 1 had even though it had an arterial-sided heat exchanger, it was not terribly efficient. Did you routinely employ hypothermia during your...
Yes.
How cold would you take the
routinely
patient?
go to 28 degrees.
Using the built-in heat exchanger?
And we had a Sarnes...
Torpedo?
No, it was the Sarnes heater cooler, and it had an internal...
Okay.
Heat exchanger in the oxygenator.
Okay. How long were you by yourself there at Bethany? I assume the program either increased its caseload or maybe you moved to another center?
I moved to another center because in the paper I'd read where St. Luke's in Kansas City had gotten approval to build a heart institute. And I thought that when the Heart Institute opened up, it was the first standalone heart institute in the United States, that when that would open up, all the smaller programs would close. So I had an opportunity to move over to St. Luke's. And so I left Bethany, and I've been at St. Luke's now 36 years.
Tell me a little bit about the interview process. How did you get the foot in the door, so to speak, over at St. Luke's?
Well, I knew who is my wife now, Maggie Russell, worked there, and she said that she had told me we had an opening, that they had an opening, and Dr. William Reed was the chief, and Dr. Reed wanted to interview me, and I went over to his office about 4 times in a suit with a resume, and he never came to the interviews. He was busy in the operating room, and finally he just told Maggie to go ahead and hire me if they thought I was a good candidate. So I started at St. Luke's in June of 1979.
I see. And was Maggie the chief perfusionist?
At that time, she did all the ordering of supplies.
I see.
So everybody kind of shared the duties. If there was an issue and you took the phone call, then you had to see it through to the final stage, whether to correct the problem or... so Maggie had a lot of responsibility back then.
Sure.
She had been there the longest of all the other perfusionists.
I see. And how big was the perfusion team at St. Luke's at that time, Skip?
There were 4 people there.
4 of you.
Uh-huh.
So I guess from going from 24/7 being on call, it was spread around a bit?
Yes.
How did the call work?
Everybody took equal share, and we all got paid for it.
Okay. So that was definitely a step up from your previous employment.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit more about the equipment over the years. You were using bubble oxygenators in the late 70s. Did you eventually transition to membranes?
Well, I actually, when I was still at Bethany, I tried the Travenol, I believe it was Travenol membrane, where you had to run 2 pump heads.
Oh, the TMO.
Yes, TMO. And also one of the perfusionists from St. Luke's went to work for PsyMed.
I see.
And so he came over and showed me some PsyMed membranes. So I ran a few of the TMOs, and I ran a few of PsyMeds. And they were large, and the one that took 2 pump heads to drive it, they weren't synced together, so you had to control both knobs. PsyMed took a lot of priming volume, but back in those days, we didn't really worry too much about prime, and almost everybody got 2 units of blood.
Really?
Circuit, right. Really? But while I was at St. Luke's, we used bubblers for a good 5 years.
I see.
And one of our surgeons, Dr. Arnold Killen, got interested in membranes. And so we used the first Bard generation membrane that came out.
Which was a microporous?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we used that for a long, long time.
Okay.
The only reason we switched away from the William Harvey H1000 oxygenators, they weren't going to make it anymore.
I see.
So different surgeons use different oxygenators. So you really couldn't get a good value because you're ordering bits and pieces for each surgeon. And we finally, after years, got them all on the same oxygenator, the same cardiotomy reservoir, all the same equipment.
Sure.
But we had some issues with other oxygenators from other companies. There was a time period that we were getting oxygenators from California when they had a bad med fly incident, or fruit flies. And so you'd open up your tubing pack or you'd open up your oxygenator and there would be a dead fly inside the oxygenator. So we quit using that product.
Sure.
It was easy to change a surgeon's mind when you told them there was a dead sterile fly inside the oxygenator.
Now, besides the individual oxygenators amongst the surgeons, was there any uniform protocols for how to conduct perfusion, or was that individualized to each surgeon as well, Skip?
We had a fairly standard protocol for going on and coming off bypass. We didn't really chart a lot of things. When we went on, when we started cooling, when we did a blood gas. And so our remarks were only 4 or 5 sentences.
I see.
But we all pretty well pumped the same way.
I see. And when did cardioplegia come into your practice?
Well, we started using a crystalloid cardioplegia from the head of the table.
Okay.
And it was attached to a quick prime line, and the bag was put in a pressure bag, and we would pump it up and run it straight. There was no filter in line, and when the surgeon wanted it, we'd take the bag. We had it sitting in a tubing pack tray filled with ice. That kept it cold in between the shots. And we would pump up the bag and open up the clamp and let it run in, and he'd get 200 or 400 or whatever, however much he wanted. And then we'd lay it back down in the ice when we were done. We did that for about 3 years. And if you weren't in the room to help with the delivery of it, then anesthesia might do it. But we operated in 2 rooms, and we did a lot of running back and forth between the rooms, trying to make sure cardioplegia was in the ice and ready to go.
Sure.
When we finally came out with a system that hooked to the pump and was driven by the pump, then the perfusionist could deliver it, and that was a huge innovation, to be able to not have to have 2 people in the room, somebody at the head of the table. The perfusionist could give it at will.
Do you recall what that first integrated cardioplegia delivery system looked like?
in a white bucket in a coil.
Sure.
And I can't remember the company. It might have been something that Shiley produced.
Sure. And it was still crystalloid at that
Yes.
point. Did you ever transition over to a blood cardioplegia delivery?
Not until we'd been working for probably 20 years.
I see.
I used crystalloid primarily on everybody.
So you started in 1977, is that right?
Yes,
And you're still practicing
I am.
in 2015. That's quite a track record.
It's a lot of cases.
A lot of cases. Because the Kansas City Heart Institute, or what is it called?
Mid-America Heart
Mid-America Heart Institute has quite a reputation as almost a mecca for
Yes.
people with all sorts of issues. I know the cardiologists are very aggressive with stenting, and
Yes.
when that doesn't work, I guess you see them in the operating room for their bypass operations. So you've been there really at two institutions your entire career,
Yes.
Bethany and the Heart Institute.
I had surgeons that went around to different hospitals when I was at Bethany. And so I actually pumped the first 5 cases at a hospital in Overland Park in Overland Park, Kansas, for those surgeons.
Okay.
I also would take the balloon pump over to different hospitals that they went to. They went to Shawnee Mission Medical Center. So I took the old Abco Model 7 over to Shawnee Mission.
That must not have been very easy. Did you have a station wagon or a
No,
truck?
I had one of our orderlies had a pickup truck. And that was a very heavy, it was like lifting an ATM machine into the vehicle.
Sure, sure. Well, as you reflect back on your career, both at the early days and at the Heart Institute, are there any surgeons that really stand out in your mind that you really learned a lot from, or influenced you, or enjoyed working with?
Well, Dr. William Reed was the chief surgeon at St. Luke's for 30 years, and learned a lot from him. His partner was Arnold Killen, and Dr. Killen was a walking encyclopedia about everything, not only perfusion, but any subject that you want to talk about. They left St. Luke's in 2002, and they had also hired who is our director now, is Dr. Mike Borcon. And I've worked with Dr. Reed for 25 years, and it overlapped with Dr. Borcon. I've now pumped with Dr. Borcon longer than I did with Dr. Reed.
Really? Did you ever have the experience that some have talked about, where the surgeons would go to a meeting and come back with a new idea on how to change the delivery of cardiopulmonary bypass?
Yes, we didn't have arterial line filters for a long time.
Okay.
And the blood exited the bubble oxygenator and went straight to the patient. And we had for years tried to get our surgeons to look at them and okay it, the use of it at St. Luke's. And after they went to a meeting and saw a presentation, they came back and said, "What do you think about arterial line filters?" And we all said, yeah. So we started doing that. And then they were the ones that saw the membranes at the meetings.
Sure. So how did the transition go when you made a major change like that to begin using arterial line filters? Did the team get any in-service, or was it sort of you had to learn on your own?
Well, you got a lot of help from the vendors.
Okay.
So they would show you how to use it, show you how to prime it, and no matter what it was. So if we bought a new heart-lung machine, they would in-service us on the use of the equipment. It wasn't a bad learning curve, other than debubbling an arterial filter took some time.
Did you ever implement 100% CO2 flush of the filter to aid debubbling?
Yes,
You did.
and when we built our present Heart Institute, we have it in line, and comes out of the wall that way.
Okay.
And the old way was to take tanks from room to room.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about the anesthesiology team that you worked with over the years. Has it been fairly stable? And once again, are there any
Very stable
anesthesiologists that stand out in your mind that you enjoyed working with or maybe learned from?
Well, Dr. Rich Nelson's was our first cardiac anesthesiologist, and he's still practicing. And then there have been a number, but Dr. Jim Kelly is another one.
Sure.
And Dr. Randy Hudson are the senior members. And we've done thousands of cases together.
And I imagine when you're on bypass, you and the anesthesiologist exchange information,
Yes.
blood gases,
Yes.
ACT results, that
Yes.
sort of thing. How much leeway do the anesthesiologists give you when you're on bypass to administer drugs directly into the pump?
Well, they used to walk over and inject a little bit of Neo into a pigtail, and every time the pressure got low and we couldn't get it high with flow. And that constant walking back over to us got really old after a while. So
Sure.
they finally said, here's a syringe, give it when you need it. And we still practice that way today. So we have really quite a bit of leeway. But there were 4 of us there that had over 150 years experience combined. And so we had a lot of leeway because there was so much trust and we had done so many cases.
So you say, what you're saying is you had a very stable perfusion
Yes.
team.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine most of your cases were coronary artery bypass
They were.
grafts. Did you do any thoracic aortic surgery or ventricular assist?
Not in the early years. Mostly coronaries were single vessel, double vessel. When I was at Bethany, we did 6 double valves, and they were long, drawn-out cases, and all 6 of those patients died.
Oh, my goodness.
But when we had double valves at St. Luke's, that was the first time I'd ever seen one survive, and it was a short pump run.
Mm.
And I was shocked that they did so well.
Yes,
And,
yes.
The ventricular assist device program started in 1994. And,
Quite early.
Yeah. And we had gone to Presbyterian in New York to meet Dr. Oz and see the Thoratec equipment that they were using. And but in the early years, we did it with a centrifugal pump head and
Sure,
and tubing.
sure.
And
So if you did put a centrifugal pump in for either failure to wean or post-op heart failure, who actually sat with that system?
the perfusion team stayed in-house.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that put quite a dent in your manpower.
Yes, we were doing 1,000 pump cases a year, and if we stayed all night, we still had to work all day the next day.
It's very tough. Certainly a job for a younger person to be able to put in those hours, isn't it?
And try to have kids, and I eventually married one of my coworkers, and then we started a family, and we were both taking call. And in those days, in the 80s and into the 90s, 2 people took call, and 2 people went in when you got called.
Okay.
We tried to have 2 people for every case, at least going on bypass and coming off bypass.
Sure, sure.
And so for my wife and I to juggle our call schedules and still have some vacation time together, it was tough.
Sure, sure. So I'm going to ask sort of a broad question now, Skip, about as you reflect back on the last 38 years, what do you think have been one or two of the major technical innovations that really changed the way you do bypass today?
Well, to move into the membrane era was very beneficial.
Sure.
Get away from the bubble oxygenators. Although we'd done thousands of patients on bubblers, and they worked well and they were inexpensive. Mm-hmm. And the other are the safety devices. We didn't have low-level alarms. We didn't have bubble detectors. My first low-level alarm would go off with when it saw light. We would tape it to the side of the oxygenator.
Yes.
A photo sensor. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
Sure.
But cardioplegia was a major innovation.
Sure. Could really prolong the safe period of cross-clamp.
Yes.
How important has continuing education been in your career? I know that you've organized many meetings in the Kansas City area. You certainly have attended some national conferences. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about continuing education in your view.
Well, we all would try to go to a meeting every year. So we rotated, and in the early years, the hospital was pretty giving of funds for us to travel. And my favorite meeting was an AMSEC meeting because they unveiled new products in the vendor exhibits. So if you wanted to see the latest oxygenator or the latest heart-lung machine, you had to go to an AMSEC meeting to see it.
Sure.
Nowadays, vendors come by as soon as they have a product, they knock on your door and they want to show it to you. But that was always the best part, I thought, of going to a meeting was seeing what's coming out.
Sure.
But we've always done continuing education, and we did it locally. That's how I met my wife. I was at Bethany, and in those days we had local AMSEC chapters. And so St. Luke's would put on a chapter meeting, and they would get one of their surgeons to speak or one of their anesthesiologists. So I went over from Bethany to attend the conference, and that's how I met Maggie, and we eventually got married after that. But continuing education is extremely important.
Sure.
And we still host meetings. I'm part of the Missouri Perfusion Society, and so after we passed our licensing bill, some societies fold, and we thought, well, we'll just keep doing scientific meetings. So we continue that in Missouri yearly. And
you worked with Al Stammers, I believe, with some blood management
we
meetings?
Did a combined meeting, hemostasis meeting that Al would put on. And that was a great meeting, and Al was a regular around Kansas City.
Sure.
He was the director of the program in Nebraska, so he wasn't very far away.
Sure. So over the years, as you said, you would see new equipment at the meetings, and now vendors knock on your door. Mm-hmm. What is, and this isn't really a negative or a positive thrust to this question, but what is your general view of the cardiopulmonary industry?
Well, there aren't as many vendors as there used to be, and you have 4 or 5 major vendors. And I was concerned that with cost containment that the research and development programs would suffer, but they still come out with better oxygenators, and now they have integrated filters, and so that I think they've done a good job of promoting their products and developing good products, safe products.
Sure. Well, let's say, give you a hypothetical, and I'm sure this may or may not have happened, but let's say you had a leaking oxygenator or some other device-related issue. How responsive did you find the various companies, without naming names, but just in general?
Well, generally, if we had an oxygenator that would fail, we'd send it back to the company, and you'd get a letter stating that they ran it and couldn't find anything wrong with it. It was pretty standard.
Yes.
But then, it was exposed to blood, and they try to wash them out. And, generally, if we had a leak in something, we didn't use it very long.
Sure.
If we had problems with products, and they didn't stay in our hospital.
So you would change and use what you thought was probably the best device at that time.
Yes. There's 7 of us now, and we evaluate everything that we use. And pros and cons. We didn't used to put cost in the equation, but cost is in the equation now.
Sure. And once a decision is made amongst your current team members, everybody uses the same system?
Everybody uses it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, during your career skip, did you have the opportunity to work with new perfusionists or even trainee perfusionists?
Well, we started as a clinical site with the University of Nebraska Medical Center in 1997.
Okay.
And in the early years, we only would get 3 or 4 students. We still are a clinical site. We get 4 students a year. And David Holt is the director of that program, and David just brought his students down for us to kind of showcase our new Heart Institute and to do some lectures. And they have 13 in their present class. So the classes have gotten a lot larger.
Sure.
The first class had Joe Deptula in it, and he went to work with Gary Grist at Children's. We captured Troy Sejic out of that class, and Doug Zavadil went to Trinity Lutheran Hospital. So 3 of the 4 perfusionists in that class in 1997 came to Kansas City.
Wonderful. And how, tell me a little bit more about the logistics of students doing a rotation at your center. Was it one student at a time, and
Yes.
Did you spread the mentoring amongst the entire team, or were there designated people such as yourself that would spend as much time with one student on any given rotation?
We all take the students, and the students are free to pick and choose the cases they want to do. We try to point them in the direction that would be the best learning experience. So if we had 4 cases during the day, and one was a cab times 2 and the other was a double valve, we wanted them on the double valve.
Sure.
So we sort of steered them away from easy, short cases. And all of us take time with each student, and we take one student at a time.
So tell me a little bit more about the mentoring. Obviously, they would be involved from early morning setup, priming, managing, with you looking over their shoulder.
Yes.
Did you do any post-bypass debriefing or any sort of one-on-one discussion after cases?
Yes.
Or after a particularly
After every case,
challenging?
we have a score sheet, a grading sheet, and we try to go over at the end of the case that grading sheet and discuss how the case went, what was good about it, what was bad about it. But our students will bounce right into another room after they finish their first case. They generally get 2 a day, and sometimes 3 a day. So our debriefing period can be really short. But
A brief debriefing.
yes, I like to discuss any points of interest while we're in the room doing the case.
Sure.
So there's not a long debriefing afterwards. It's just depending on how much time you have.
Tell me a little bit about how the surgeons have reacted to having students there. Has it been fairly seamless?
Yes.
Or
Our surgeons enjoy having the students, and it's made us better perfusionists.
really?
Because we have to stay abreast of the latest technology, and these students come in very smart.
Okay.
And so I'm known in Nebraska as the master of disaster. So I talk about things that you don't usually see in textbooks. It's lights go out, the pump fails, the oxygenator fails, the heater cooler fails, things like that.
Well, that actually is a good lead into my next question, Skip, and that is, do any cases in particular stand out as ones you'll never forget?
Well, you have so many successful cases that you don't always remember those. It's the cases that go bad, cases where you've had to change out an oxygenator. I've had so many of those that they sort of all run together.
Okay.
In the 38 years, I wouldn't say I may have changed out an oxygenator 10 times.
Really?
Yeah. So out of the 4,000 or 5,000 cases I've done, that's probably not very many, but it's for a while we were getting a bad batch, and it was a manufacturing error, and so the whole lot of oxygenators were bad, and we'd change one out almost daily.
Well, that must have been nerve-wracking going into a case not knowing whether the oxygenator would fail or not.
Right.
And I'm sure as you changed out the first one, you changed out the third one, you changed out the sixth one, you got a little better at it.
Yes, we got a little faster.
But that's the type of case I'm sure that sticks with you
Right.
well into the next day, night.
Right.
How did you approach perfusion? Tell me a little bit about a typical workday, even today, regarding chart review. Do you interface with the patient at all?
We do more of that now. Most of our patients were asleep by the time we got in the room, and we would set up early in the morning, and then we would go have breakfast, and by the time we got back, then the patient was already asleep and ready to go. But we're a very busy ECMO program and a very busy transplant program, and we see a lot of these patients before surgery, and of course we don't stay in-house with our ECMO patients. We have a group of specialists, from internists to nurses to respiratory therapists, that help us. We're still a busy surgery program.
Sure. So that's very much sounds like the University of Michigan.
We've modeled our
mode.
ECMO program after Michigan's program.
But the perfusionists clearly are involved with setting up,
All
priming,
training, yes.
Initiating,
Change out.
troubleshooting.
Yes.
If a patient's on ECMO, Skip, do you have one of the perfusion members make rounds daily?
Yes. Even on weekends.
Really?
Daily rounds, and we leave our name at the nurse's station and who to contact at night, and we come in on the weekends and round on those patients.
And I imagine your ECMO program started out with infants or newborns. Are you taking all comers now?
It's all adults. We don't do any pediatric cases at St. Luke's.
All adult
Uh-huh.
respiratory failure. Those are challenging cases, and those tend to be long cases.
Well, most of them are pneumonias, ARDS, H1N1, and so I think the longest we ever had anybody on ECMO was 45 days.
Boy, that's a long time.
Yeah. Our VV ECMO is very successful. We're above the national average in survival. Our VA ECMOs take more of an incident of cardiac failure. And
Sure.
last winter, in 2014, we had 8 ECMOs at one time.
My goodness.
And we only had 4 carts, and so I'd go to Children's Mercy Hospital and get some of their equipment, and I would go to North Kansas City Hospital and get some of their equipment, and we had to borrow to take care of everybody. This past winter was not as bad.
Okay.
We've done 5 so far this year.
And I imagine you started out with the SciMed Colabo membrane. What sort of circuitry are you using now for adult ECMO?
It's a Quadrox oxygenator.
Quadrox. Mm-hmm. And what sort of a pump, Skip?
So we use a Revolution from Soren, centrifugal pump.
Do you have to change out the centrifugal pump every few days, or do they generally last the entire?
They last usually longer than the oxygenator does.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But if we do a change out, they get a whole new circuit.
Sure.
We've had issues with clotting. Some of our patients get heparinized and some not. If they're bleeding, we don't heparinize them. And everybody, when you round, you check the oxygenator on both sides for clots, visible clots. And we do blood gases daily.
Sure.
When the blood gases start to deteriorate, then we change out the oxygenator.
Okay. So I imagine in the patients that don't get heparin, these are coated circuits, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
All of our tubing is coated.
I see.
For every patient.
Let's talk now a little bit about teamwork, not just with ECMO, but in the operating room. Do you have regular team meetings, or does everybody seem to get along? How do you handle the teamwork aspects in your practice?
Well, in the early years, there were the 4 or 5 of us that worked together for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. We're now up to 7 people. We've hired some of our students. It's a very cohesive group. We have a good time in our office. We laugh a lot, but we take our job very seriously. And it's a very tight team. The acuity level of our patients is really high, and we do a lot of cases. And we have 7 surgeons, so we're a busy program, and it's very good. And that's all we do. We're in a new heart institute after 30 years in our last one, and it's the same people every day, same nurses, same anesthesiologists.
Sure. So you alluded to patients being a little sicker these days than they may have been a decade or more ago.
True.
How many cases during a typical week now get added on as either urgent or emergent?
It's not uncommon to get one almost daily.
Really?
Or every 2 or 3 days.
Where they call down from the cath lab and say, this patient needs to go to surgery now.
Right. You really can't put a lot of stock in our schedule because it changes. So
really?
I get up in the morning and at home while I'm having coffee, I look at our schedule on my computer. And by the time I get to work, there could be 2 or 3 cases added on.
Really?
That I didn't see.
It's a very, very busy program.
Right.
Do you have any perfusion-related stories that stand out, either while attending conferences or sharing experiences with other perfusionists that you'd like to share with the people viewing this interview?
Well, I got to meet Denton Cooley at the AMSEC meeting that was in Houston. And one of my coworkers had gone to THI, and she took us over to the hospital, and we met him, shook hands with him. I was probably 28, 29 years old, and had come from a small program and now into a big program. And to that meant a lot to me to meet Dr. Cooley.
Sure.
I've rubbed elbows with a lot of the people that are here at this meeting today.
Yes.
And it's good to see old faces. And one of the remarks from my students is how young the group looked. And I said, well, you don't see very much gray hair in this room.
Yes.
And
yes.
I actually took my board exams after I'd been in the field for 15 years.
Really?
And so I got certified in 1993.
Okay.
And I didn't go to a school, so everything that was on the test I had to learn, by reading books, and I studied with a coworker that was also taking the exam, and he and I went through the process together.
That must have been challenging.
Well, I did very well on the oral exam. The written was a little tougher. It took 2 attempts to get through the written exam.
Well, and the disadvantage, of course, is that you didn't come out of a formal
Right.
training program. So as you said, you had to do a lot of book reading on your own.
Yes. And I had a lot of test questions on tape that we had made, and I'd listen to those tapes when I drove to work and drove home at the end of the day.
Sure. Now, licensure was recently enacted in your state.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what the criterion is to be licensed in Missouri.
Well, it's tied into continuing education. So you have to be certified perfusionist to get a license.
Okay.
We can hire new grads, and they can qualify for a provisional license, but they have to have a mentor with them while they're working and taking and waiting to take their board exams.
I see. Well, it's not unlike the situation in other states,
Right.
where the American Board certificate is very, very important, and many state licensing boards, I think, have adopted the American Board
Yes.
criterion.
Our first president was Bob Longnecker, and he got a group of us together in St. Louis, and we passed our licensing bill the first year that we attempted it.
Really?
I was a representative from the Kansas City area, and then was elected vice president, and then I became the society's second president.
Wonderful.
So Bob and I have worked together for a long time.
Well, to get it through the legislature in just 1 year, I think, is extraordinary. I know that in other states, it's several years to
Yes.
get a licensure bill passed and mandated, essentially, for all perfusionists.
Yes.
I know in New York, they spent many, many years.
And you have to come up with the money. Usually comes out of all the members of the society,
Sure.
your lobbyist costs, and if it drags on for several years, you can run out of money quick.
Well, it was another good day when they finally passed it in Missouri after only 1 year's effort.
Yes, we were all the board of directors were in the governor's office.
Really?
And we had a photo taken, and I had taken my son with me, and so he's just on the edge of the picture and sitting on Mel Carnahan, the governor's desk, sort of because he got a little tired of standing. And so I joke with my son a lot about sitting on the corner of the governor's desk to rest.
How old was your son at that time?
I believe he was 11.
Okay. Well, now again, shifting gears a bit, Skip, what in your estimation constitutes some personal attributes to be a good perfusionist? Can you reflect on that for us?
I've always been concerned about details, attention to detail, and there's so much multitasking going on while you're doing a case that you really need to pay attention and stay focused to all the aspects of it.
Sure.
And we've gone to an electronic record, and that has helped us a lot to stay more focused on all the other tasks that we do. But it's much more complicated now than it used to be.
Sure.
Heart-lung machines are more sophisticated, more computerized. The early pictures of our pump was just 5 roller heads and nothing mounted on the mast except a Secret oxygen blender.
Sure.
And now we have displets, and we have vacuum regulators, and we have electronic oxygen delivery system, and it's very congested.
How easy or difficult was it to implement the electronic record into your practice?
It took me 8 years to get it.
8 years, but once the decision was made to implement it, how quickly did the perfusion team adapt to using that as opposed to the handwritten record?
Well, and I've kept a handwritten record for 35 years.
So you continue to keep a hand record?
I do not. But
you don't?
The transition was very easy.
Okay.
Because the device that we selected was very user-friendly.
Okay.
The more user-friendly that it is, the more expensive it is. But our hospital had me sit in on a prioritization committee meeting. I had 5 minutes to plead my case. And I showed pictures on PowerPoint slides of people with bad penmanship. The handwritten records were perfect. They had done everything, but it was very difficult to read. And our record now is, we tweak it every couple of days.
I see.
Add something that we like, take something out that we don't like.
Okay.
And it's very simple to use.
Well, I would say that your group is ahead of the curve on this because the electronic record is very slowly being embraced and used around the country.
We're the only hospital in Kansas City that has it.
Really? Well, I'm going to pose another question, very broad question, as we're getting near the end of this interview, Skip, and that is, what has it meant to you personally to have been a perfusionist for as long as you have been?
I absolutely love it. I get up in the morning and I'm ready to go. My wife was a perfusionist for 40 years. We could talk about a day at work, and we both knew exactly what each other did. And I was asked that by David Holt last week. He said, "Do you have as much enthusiasm as you did 38 years ago?" And I said, "Absolutely."
That's wonderful. That is wonderful.
I really enjoy it.
Even though I think you alluded to earlier, other than the ECMO patients or maybe some of the VAD patients, your interaction with individual heart patients is fairly limited. Do you ever visit patients post-op or happen to see patients after their surgery?
Not weeks after, but usually post-operatively. We, especially if we had a really long, difficult case, we like to check up on them, see how they're doing.
Sure. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with today's perfusionists when they view your video? And the plan is to either post the entire interview or post some excerpts on the AMSEC website. Is there any words of wisdom you might have for today's new perfusionist, Skip?
Well, pay attention to detail, study regularly, read as many journals as you can, but enjoy what you do. Hopefully they'll take jobs that they have coworkers like I've had that you get along with, trust, and that you have their back and that they'll have yours.
Well, it sounds like an ideal situation, and I really applaud your experience that you've shared with us today. Is there any other closing thoughts you might want to say before we turn off the camera?
It's been a pleasure knowing you for a long time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Skip. Well, I think that this has been a wonderful hour we've spent with you. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and experiences on behalf of AMSEC. As you may know, the executive board made the decision on who to interview, and we're just delighted that you were willing to be interviewed. I know there was a bit of a hesitation when I first invited you.
There was.
You were the first to say, yes, I'll be there. So I want to thank you for that.
In looking at today's perfusionists, they look really smart.
Yes.
And I never thought I was as smart as these kids today and most of the people in the room. I've just been very, very dedicated, and I've been around a long time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Skip. This has been terrific.
Thank you.